Hello, and welcome back to Sera English. I am so happy you are here with me today. Every episode you come back to, every story you listen to, every new word that settles into your memory, all of it is building something. Your English is growing, even on the days when it does not feel like it. Keep showing up. That is all it takes. Today's story is one of my favorites. It is set in a small mountain town, inside a shop full of clocks, and it is about a young woman who learns the most important lesson of her life from the most unexpected teacher. The story is called The Clockmaker's Daughter. But first, our word of the episode. The word is patience. Patience. Say it with me. Patience. Patience means the ability to wait calmly for something, to endure difficulty or delay without becoming angry or anxious. Patience is not passive. It is not simply doing nothing and waiting. True patience is active. It means continuing to work, continuing to believe, continuing to show up, even when results are slow and progress is invisible. Patience is one of the most powerful things a human being can practice. And today's story is entirely about learning it. Patience. Let us begin. The town of Seville sat high in the mountains, where winters were long and white, and the sound of wind through the pine trees was the closest thing the residents had to music most of the year. In the center of Seville, on a narrow street called Copper Lane, there was a clock shop. The shop had no grand sign, only a small wooden board above the door that read, Osman, Clocks and Repairs. The window was always full of clocks of every kind, tall grandfather clocks with swinging pendulums, small carriage clocks in brass cases, delicate wall clocks with painted faces, pocket watches laid out on velvet. They were all running. They were all keeping perfect time. And if you stood outside the window for even a moment, you would hear them, a layered, overlapping sound of ticking that was somehow not chaotic but deeply, strangely calm, like listening to a very large and very orderly heart. The clockmaker was a man named Osman. He was 72 years old, with white hair and large, careful hands and a habit of speaking very slowly, as if every word deserved its full weight before being released into the air. And his daughter was Zara. Let me teach you a vocabulary word. The word is meticulous. Meticulous. It means giving very careful attention to every detail, being extremely precise and thorough. Someone who is meticulous does not rush. They check everything twice. They care about the small things as much as the large ones. Osman the clockmaker was meticulous. Every gear he touched, every spring he adjusted, every tiny screw he turned was handled with complete attention and care. Meticulous. Use it today. You could say someone is meticulous in their work or that they give meticulous attention to detail. Zara was 28 years old, and she had spent her entire life trying to move faster than Seville. She had left at 18, gone to university in a large city, studied business, worked for 3 companies in 7 years, been promoted twice, been let go once, moved apartments 4 times, and arrived back in Seville on a rainy Tuesday in March carrying 2 suitcases and a frustration she could not quite explain even to herself. She had not planned to come back. She had not planned anything, which was itself deeply uncomfortable for her, because Zara was someone who had always had a plan. 5-year plans, 10-year plans, color-coded schedules, spreadsheets with projections. She was someone who measured progress in visible, countable, documented steps, and the idea of time passing without measurable achievement made her feel a particular kind of panic, like standing on a moving walkway that was going in the wrong direction. Her father met her at the door of the clock shop. He lived in the 2 rooms above it, and said only, "Come in. I will make tea." He did not ask why she was back. He did not ask what had gone wrong. He simply made tea, put a cup in front of her, and went back to the clock he had been working on. Zara sat at his workbench for a long time that first evening, watching his hands. Here is an idiom. The idiom is to bite off more than you can chew. To bite off more than you can chew means to take on more than you are capable of handling, to attempt something that is too large or too difficult for where you currently are. Zara, in her 7 years in the city, had bitten off more than she could chew, not because she was not capable, but because she had mistaken speed for progress and quantity for meaning. She had taken on more and more without stopping to ask whether any of it was actually what she wanted. To bite off more than you can chew. In those first weeks back in Seville, Zara was restless in a way that only people who have forgotten how to be still can be restless. She woke early and paced. She made lists of things she needed to do, and then felt helpless because none of the things she needed to do could be done immediately. She applied for jobs online and refreshed her inbox 17 times a day. She reorganized her father's small apartment 3 times. She took long walks through the town and came back more agitated than when she left. Her father watched all of this quietly. One morning, about 2 weeks after her return, he looked up from his workbench and said, "Come and sit here. I want to show you something." Zara sat on the small stool beside him. On the bench in front of him was a clock, a very old carriage clock, its case tarnished and its face cracked, the mechanism inside completely still. "This came in yesterday," Osmond said. "It has not run in 40 years. The owner's grandmother left it to her. She wants it working again." He opened the case carefully, with the specific gentleness of someone who has opened 10,000 things and broken none of them. "Watch," he said. He did not begin with the large parts. He began with the smallest, a tiny spring, no larger than a thumbnail, which he lifted out with tweezers and held up to the light. He examined it for a very long time without speaking. "What are you looking for?" Zara asked. "I do not know yet," he said. "That is why I am looking. Let me give you a vocabulary word. The word is tarnished." Tarnished. It means dulled or discolored, usually referring to metal that has lost its shine over time due to exposure to air or moisture. But we also use tarnished to talk about reputations or memories that have been damaged. His reputation was tarnished by the scandal. The tarnished old clock. Tarnished. It is a word with a very particular feeling, something that was once bright, now dimmed, but not necessarily beyond repair. Tarnished. Every morning after that, Zara sat beside her father at the workbench. She had not planned to. The first morning she came down simply because she could not sleep. The second morning she came because she was curious about the carriage clock. By the third morning it had become, without her deciding it, simply what she did. She watched him work. He did not explain what he was doing while he did it. He worked in silence mostly, and when he did speak it was in short, unhurried sentences that seemed to come from a different relationship with time than the one Zara had. "Why do you do the small parts first?" she asked one morning. "Because the small parts are usually the problem," he said, not looking up. People always want to look at the big mechanism first. They think because it is big it must be important. but it is almost always something tiny. A single tooth missing from a gear. A hair caught in a spring. Something you would miss completely if you were in a hurry. He set down his tweezers and looked at her. Everything that stops working, he said, stops working because of something small that was ignored. Zara thought about that for a long time. Here is an idiom. The idiom is back to square one. Back to square one means returning to the beginning of a process after a failure or setback, having to start again from the very start. When the carriage clock proved more complicated than expected, Osmond took the entire mechanism apart and began again. He went back to square one without frustration, without complaint, as if starting again was simply part of the process and not a punishment. Back to square one. One afternoon, about a month into her stay, Osmond handed Zara a small pocket watch and a pair of tweezers. "Open it," he said. "I do not know how." "I know," he said. "Open it anyway." She worked at the case for nearly 10 minutes before it came apart. Inside was the movement, a tiny, intricate arrangement of gears and springs and jewels, so small and so complex that looking at it made her feel simultaneously amazed and completely inadequate. "Now what?" she said. "Look at it," Osmond said. "Just look. Do not touch anything yet. Just look until you understand what you are seeing." She looked for a long time. Slowly, the confusion began to resolve into something almost like order. She began to see the logic of it, how each piece connected to the next, how the energy moved from the spring through the gears to the hands. It was a kind of language, she realized, and like any language, it required time and attention before it began to make sense. "Every clock," Osmond said from across the bench, where he was working on something else, "is a system. Every part depends on every other part. Remove one piece and the whole thing stops. Add one piece incorrectly, and the whole thing stops." He paused. "People are like this too." "What do you mean?" Zara asked, still looking at the movement. "Your life is a system," he said. "When something stops working, it is almost never the thing you think it is. It is something smaller, something earlier, something you passed over quickly because you were in a hurry. Here is a vocabulary word. The word is intricate. Intricate. It means very detailed and complicated, with many small parts or elements that are connected. The clockwork was intricate. Every tiny component had a purpose and a relationship to every other component. We use intricate to describe many things: an intricate design, an intricate problem, an intricate relationship. Something intricate rewards patience and attention. You cannot understand something intricate in a hurry. Intricate. Weeks passed. The mountain winter deepened. Snow settled on the rooftops of Seville, and the streets grew quiet, and the light turned a particular shade of blue-white that Zara had forgotten existed. She was not moving fast. She was not achieving anything measurable. She had no job yet, no plan, no color-coded spreadsheet. But something was happening that she could not immediately name. She was learning to look at small things. She noticed that the second hand on a repaired clock moved slightly differently from the second hand on a new one, with a kind of quiet confidence, like someone who had come through something difficult and was running again because they had chosen to, not because they were wound up for the first time. She noticed that her father ate his lunch at exactly the same time every day and derived from this a visible satisfaction. She noticed that the sound of the clocks in the shop, all of them, together, all their different ticks layered on top of each other, was not noise. It was, in its own way, music. She called her best friend Rima one evening. "How are you?" Rima asked. "Are you going crazy up there in the mountain with the old clocks?" "No," Zara said. And then, surprised by her own answer, "Actually, I think I am becoming slightly more sane. Let me teach you another idiom. The idiom is to stand the test of time. To stand the test of time means to remain valuable, relevant, or functional over a long period, to prove your worth not immediately but across years or decades. Osman's clocks stood the test of time. They were built and repaired to last, not to impress quickly and then fail. We say the same about relationships, values, art, and ideas. A friendship that stands the test of time is one that survives distance and difficulty and change. To stand the test of time. In her 3rd month in Seville, Zara made her first repair alone. It was a simple wall clock, a straightforward mechanism, nothing unusual, the kind of job Osman could do in 20 minutes. He set it in front of her one morning without comment and went to make tea. She worked for 2 hours. She made 3 mistakes, corrected 2 of them herself, and called her father back for the 3rd. He looked at what she had done, pointed to a single gear she had seated slightly off angle, said nothing, and went back to the kitchen. She fixed the gear. She reassembled the movement. She wound the clock. She held her breath. The second hand moved. Then the minute hand ticked forward once, very deliberately, as if testing the situation. And then the clock settled into its rhythm. Tick, 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 steady and calm and completely itself. Zara stared at it for a long moment. Then she put her head down on the workbench and cried. Not from sadness. From something she could not name precisely, a mix of relief and pride, and the particular emotion that comes from finishing something small that was actually very hard. When she lifted her head, her father was standing in the doorway with 2 cups of tea. He had clearly been there for some time. He set a cup beside her and sat down on his stool. "The first one is always like that," he said. "Like what?" she said, wiping her eyes. "It always surprises you," he said. "You expect to feel proud, but you feel something more than that." He considered. "You feel as if you finally understand something you have been trying to understand for a long time without knowing it." Here is a vocabulary word. The word is persevere. Persevere. It means to continue steadily despite difficulty, to keep going even when progress is slow or obstacles appear. Persevere is the verb. The noun is perseverance, which we learned in episode 4. Zara persevered through 2 hours of difficulty with that small wall clock. She made mistakes. She continued. She finished. And the clock ran. Persevere. It is one of the most important words in any language. One evening in late winter, Osman put down his tools at 5 o'clock. Unusual for him, he often worked until 7 or later and made a simple dinner of soup and bread. He called Zara down. They ate together at the small table by the window that looked out over the snow-covered lane. After a while, Osman said, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," Zara said. "When you were in the city, all those years, all those jobs, all that moving, what were you trying to get to?" Zara thought about it honestly. "I thought I was trying to build something," she said. "A career. A life. Something I could point to and say, 'Look, this is what I made.'" "And did you?" She was quiet for a moment. "I made things," she said, "but I always moved on before I could see if they lasted." She paused. I think I was afraid that if I stayed still long enough to look closely at what I had made, I would see that it was not quite right. So I kept moving. If you keep moving, you do not have to see clearly. Osmond nodded slowly. He looked out the window at the lane below, where the snow was falling again in soft, unhurried flakes. You know what ruins more clocks than anything else, he said. What? Being forced, he said. When someone forces the hands. When they want the clock to show a different time than it is actually keeping, so they push the hands forward manually. It strips the gears. It damages the mechanism. It looks like it is working. The hands move to where you push them, but inside, something is broken. He turned and looked at her. You cannot force time. You can only keep good time. Zara did not say anything for a long time. Outside, the snow fell on Copper Lane, quiet and patient and completely indifferent to deadlines. Our final idiom. The idiom is to take something in your stride. To take something in your stride means to deal with a difficulty calmly and without letting it upset or slow you down. To handle challenges as a natural part of progress rather than as catastrophes. Osmond took every broken clock, every failed repair attempt, every complicated mechanism in his stride, because he understood that difficulty was not an interruption to the work. Difficulty was the work. To take something in your stride. Spring came to Seville slowly, the way spring always comes to mountain towns, reluctantly at first, then all at once. The snow melted from the rooftops of Copper Lane. The pine trees, which had been still and dark all winter, began to move in a different kind of wind, something warmer and less certain than the winter gusts. The light returned, actual warm light, the kind that made the brass cases of the clocks in the window glow gold in the afternoons. Zara got a job offer in April. A company in a city 3 hours away. A good role, a fair salary, something her past self would have accepted immediately and begun planning her 5-year trajectory within. She sat with the offer for 3 days. Then she called her contact there and asked one question she had never thought to ask before any job. What is the culture there? Do people have time to do their work well, or are they always rushing to the next thing? There was a pause on the other end. I would say, the contact said carefully, it is fast-paced. Thank you, Zara said. I will need a few more days. She had never said that before in her life. She went back downstairs to the workbench. Her father looked up. A job offer, she told him. He waited. I am not sure, she said. I am not sure if it is right. He nodded and looked back down at his work. Sit with it, he said. A clock that is not ready to run will tell you if you listen. Let us do our review. Our word of the episode was patience, the active, calm ability to wait and continue without anxiety. We learned meticulous, extremely careful and precise, attending to every detail. We learned tarnished, dulled or damaged, but not beyond repair. We learned intricate, detailed, complex, made of many connected small parts. We learned persevere, to continue steadily despite difficulty. Our idioms were, to bite off more than you can chew, back to square one, to stand the test of time, and to take something in your stride. One more time together. To bite off more than you can chew, back to square one. To stand the test of time. To take something in your stride. The moral of The Clockmaker's Daughter is this. We live in a world that rewards speed. Everything is faster, more efficient, more immediate than it was before. And there is value in that. Efficiency matters, time matters, momentum matters. But speed has a shadow side. When we move too fast, we miss the small things. And it is the small things, the tiny gear, the miniature spring, the single moment of honest self-examination that determine whether the whole mechanism works. Zara spent 7 years forcing the hands of her own clock. She moved them forward manually, job to job, city to city, achievement to achievement, without letting the internal mechanism keep up. And eventually something stripped. Something broke quietly inside the gears, and the whole thing stopped. Coming back to Seville, sitting at that workbench, learning to look at small things, that was her repair. Not dramatic, not sudden, just slow, meticulous, patient attention to the mechanism. One small piece at a time. You're also a mechanism. A very complex and very precious one. And when something in your life is not working, when you feel stuck or lost or like the hands have stopped moving, try not to force them. Try instead to open the case carefully. Look at the small things. Find the tiny spring that is out of place. And give yourself the time that a good repair actually requires. You cannot rush a clock back to life. And you cannot rush yourself back to yourself. But if you are patient, genuinely, actively, lovingly patient, you will hear the tick return. Steady and calm and completely yours. Thank you so much for being here for episode 6 of Sera English. Every episode, you are more than you were before. I hope this story gave you something useful for your English and something true for your life. Come back for episode 7. I already have a story waiting for you. Until then, be meticulous with the small things. Take everything in your stride. And never stop listening. This is Sera English. Goodbye for now.